What if everything you thought about being blessed was wrong? Imagine Jesus saying, "The truly blessed are not the rich, not the powerful, not the successful, but the poor, the broken, and the rejected." That's exactly what happened on a mountain 2,000 years ago, and it shocked the world. Today, we're stepping into Matthew chapter 5, the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. These are not soft, inspirational quotes. These words flipped the Roman honor system upside down and redefined what it means to live in God's kingdom. And by the end of this video, you'll see why these Beatitudes weren't just poetic lines. They were a manifesto, they were dangerous, and they still carry the power to transform your life today. Stay with me, because once you see what Jesus was really saying, you'll never read these verses the same way again.
Look what he's done, can you see his grace? He set me free, so fills this place. To all my friends,
Everyone thinks they know what blessed means. In our culture, blessing is tied to success, comfort, money, and recognition. Back then in the Roman Empire, it was tied to honor, wealth, and status. Weakness was despised, poverty was shameful, persecution was failure. And here comes Jesus, standing before a crowd of ordinary people, many of them poor, sick, and oppressed, declaring, "You are the blessed ones." It's not just surprising, it's offensive, it's upside down. That's the challenge we face as readers. We've turned the Beatitudes into nice sayings for church walls, but in their original setting, they were revolutionary. And when we slow down to study them carefully, to observe, interpret, and apply, we realize Jesus was describing a kingdom that overturns everything we thought we knew. What the text says. Matthew 5:1-12 begins with Jesus sitting down on a mountainside, surrounded by crowds. His disciples come close, he opens his mouth, and what follows are 9 statements of blessing. Each one begins with the same word, blessed. In Greek, it's makarios. It doesn't mean happy in a shallow sense. It means deeply favored by God, approved, living in divine joy, even when life doesn't look like it. Let's walk through each one. Beatitude 1. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The poor in spirit are not the confident, not the self-sufficient, but those who know their need. To the Romans, poverty was shame. To Jesus, it was the doorway to God's kingdom. In Jewish thought, being poor in spirit wasn't weakness, but humility, knowing you depend on God. Jesus is saying, the kingdom doesn't start with the proud or the powerful. It starts with the desperate who come empty-handed. What does this mean for us? That blessing starts when we admit we don't have it all together. The moment you stop pretending, that's the moment heaven opens. Beatitude 2. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Who wants to be known as mourners? Rome celebrated strength, entertainment, excess. Yet Jesus says those who grieve, those who ache over loss, over sin, over the brokenness of the world, they are the ones God promises to comfort. In Isaiah, God promised to comfort his people after exile. Jesus echoes that. Mourning is not the end. God himself will meet the sorrowful with comfort. This means your tears are not wasted. If you've mourned over loss, injustice, or even your own failures, God calls you blessed because his comfort is coming. Beatitude 3. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Meekness is not weakness. The Greek word praus means strength under control. Think of a war horse trained for battle. Rome said, the strong conquer the earth. Jesus said, the meek inherit it. This is a direct reversal of Roman imperial ideology. Instead of domination, God gives the earth to those who live with humility and self-control. The meek don't claw for power. They trust God with their place in the world. And one day, God says, the earth will be theirs. Beatitude 4. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. In a land where food and water were survival, hunger and thirst were desperate cravings, Jesus says the ones craving righteousness, justice, right relationship with God, holiness, will be filled. This is covenant language. In Psalm 107, God satisfies the hungry soul. Jesus declares that spiritual hunger is not failure, it's the sign of blessing. Do you long for the world to be set right? Do you feel hungry for something deeper? That hunger is proof God is already at work in you, and He promises to satisfy it. Beatitude 5. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Mercy wasn't celebrated in Roman culture. Mercy was weakness. Yet Jesus lifts up mercy as the mark of the kingdom. This echoes Hosea 6:6. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. God values compassion more than ritual. Every act of forgiveness, every time you show kindness when the world says, take revenge, you are blessed. Because the measure you give will be the measure you receive. Beatitude 6. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Purity in the Bible isn't about ritual cleansing alone. It's about inner devotion, a heart undivided. In Exodus, Moses asked to see God's glory, but only caught a glimpse. Jesus says the pure in heart will see God fully. That's radical. No priestly barrier, no temple curtain, a direct vision of God. Purity is not about being flawless, but about being wholehearted. If your heart is aligned with God, your eyes will one day behold Him face to face. Beatitude 7. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Rome brought peace by conquest, the Pax Romana. But it was peace through blood and fear. Jesus says true peacemakers, those who heal division and bring reconciliation, are the real children of God. In Jewish thought, God Himself is the ultimate peacemaker. To be called His child means you reflect His character. Every time you reconcile, forgive, or step into conflict with peace instead of violence, you bear God's family resemblance. Beatitude 8. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is the bookend, the same promise as the first beatitude. The kingdom belongs to them. In a world where persecution meant shame, Jesus redefines it as honor. To suffer for righteousness is to stand in the place of prophets. If your faith costs you something, Jesus says you're blessed, not forgotten, not abandoned, but already sharing in heaven's reward. Beatitude 9. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. Here, Jesus shifts from they to you. It gets personal. This isn't abstract anymore. He tells His disciples, expect persecution, but don't despair. Rejoice, because you're in the company of prophets. This was not safe to say under Roman occupation. It's a bold, almost defiant statement. Faith in Jesus would bring opposition, but it would also bring eternal reward. If you've been mocked, rejected, or mistreated because of your faith, you're not alone. You're walking the same path as Jeremiah, Isaiah, and countless saints. And heaven's applause is louder than earth's rejection. The Beatitudes build to this final moment, persecution as blessing. This is the climax of the introduction to Jesus' sermon. He is redefining success, redefining honor, redefining blessing. To the crowd that day, this was radical. To us today, it's still radical. Because who wants to be poor, meek, mourning, or persecuted? Yet Jesus says, these are the very people who belong to my kingdom. This is not just encouragement, it's confrontation. He's telling us, if your definition of blessing looks like the world's, comfort, applause, power, you've missed the heart of God's kingdom. So what do we take away? The Beatitudes are not a list of to-dos. They are a description of who is truly blessed in God's eyes. They show us that God's kingdom belongs to the overlooked, the broken, the humble, the merciful, and the persecuted. They are a window into the heart of Jesus, a kingdom that looks nothing like Rome, nothing like our world, and yet everything like heaven. And this is only the beginning. Keep watching the next episode on Salt and Light, because Jesus is about to show us how these blessings change the world.